Good morning, everyone. We'll just wait until everybody gets signed in, situated. All right, well, as everybody's joining us, we'll get started. Good afternoon, LIBOR members. Happy Wednesday webinar to you all. I hope everybody is staying cool out there during this bout of heat that we're getting. My name is Marlo Paventi-Diltz, and I'm the Senior Director for Public Policy and Government Affairs here at the Long Island Board of Realtors. And I'm super happy to be spending this noon hour with you today. I'm also super happy to share with you that today's Wednesday webinar topic is Nassau County's 5-year phase-in and how to navigate the Nassau County Property Assessment. Joining us today is Robert Miles. Robert is currently Deputy Assessor and Counsel for the Nassau County Department of Assessment and serves as Special Counsel to the Office of the Nassau County Attorney. In his current capacity, Robert is responsible for managing and supervising the department's small claim assessment review division, drafting state and local legislation relevant to assessment, and advising the county assessor on legal and policy issues. Prior to joining the department, he served as Deputy Counsel Attorney for the Office of the Nassau County Attorney, specializing in appeals and opinion. So thank you for joining us today, Robert. Just a quick reminder for our members, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them into the Q&A box. Robert's presentation today will be recorded, and you will be able to find that on our website, which is www.lirealtor.com/COVID. I'll put that in the Q&A box as well. And I'm also going to put in the Q&A box some contact information for Robert and his team, should you have any questions after this presentation. So without further ado, Robert, thank you for joining us again today. And please tell us how we can better navigate Nassau County property assessment.
Oh, thank you, Marlo. I appreciate you having me. I find this topic extremely interesting, and I think it's extremely important, and I'm glad to be presenting on this. Assessment is extremely complicated, and I really want to, make it more accessible to everybody here and, everybody in the county. And I'll be presenting on that right now. So I'll just give you a brief overview. So the Nassau County Department of Assessment is responsible for valuing approximately 420,000 parcels. We have one of the largest assessing jurisdictions in the state, second behind New York City. And we have a similar assessing system to the city, wherein we assess based on a complex 4-class system. Class 1 is residential parcels, and then classes 2, 3, 4 are considered commercial. So there's 380,000 residential parcels, while there's 40,000 commercial. Nassau County assesses properties for itself and for the town's special districts and all but one of the school districts in the county. That makes up approximately 300 taxing jurisdictions. It is one of only 2 counties in the state responsible for the assessments. So it's an incredibly large and complex assessing jurisdiction, and there's very few like it, not only just in the state, but also in the region. Cities and villages in Nassau County assess property for city and village purposes, respectively, and the city of Glen Cove assesses property for the Glen Cove City School District. And unlike most of the rest of the state, the towns in Nassau have no assessing power. Generally speaking, the towns are the assessing jurisdictions that will assess the properties within its jurisdiction. But here in Nassau, we are in charge of assessing everybody, other than for city and village purposes. There are some occasions where the villages will adopt our assessment role, but that is still in their power to decide whether or not they will, have their own village assessors do the assessing, or whether they'll adopt the county's assessment role. Moving forward. So back in 2018, Nassau County performed its first reassessment in nearly a decade. Nassau County Executive Laura Curran directed the County Department of Assessment to form its reassessment, reassessing both residential and commercial properties. And prior to the reassessment, many Nassau County property values were not based upon true market value and were generally underassessed. It was a varying degree of underassessment, but based on the data that we looked at prior to the reassessment, sometimes is very significant. The frozen assessment roll created wide disparities among taxpayers due to the inaccurate assessments. And I just want to reiterate, the point of doing these valuations and assessing is to make sure that your assessments are as close to accurate as possible, because you want to make sure that the taxpayers are paying their fair share. And the decision to not assess for 10 years really did affect the values that the county was using, and then the fair, the concept of paying your fair share. And I think everyone here in the county and in the state, that's a major principle for us is, you pay for certain services in this county, and it's, fair to say that you want to have your property valued appropriately. And I think this reassessment really did that. The county restored equity and fairness to the assessment roll by accurately reassessing properties for the 2021 assessment roll. And that was the role that everyone is currently finishing paying their taxes for. The roll became final in September of, 2020. And you started paying your school taxes that fall, and you'll be finishing this summer. So I think it really went quite well, despite, the lack of reassessing for nearly a decade and for such a large county. The data showing that, we're well within the standards that the state sets. And you really can't ask for much more for such a complex system. And I should also state that not only state standards, but national standards, we were considered one of the best when considering the city, places like Philadelphia and the Northeast. It was really quite impressive. And they did a great job, I think, the department in that 1 year that they pulled together and did a reassessment. With the reassessment, we implemented the taxpayer protection plan. So in 2020, 2021, this assessment roll, the reassessment added billions of dollars of missing market value to the assessment roll, correcting years of degradation. Due to the necessary recapture of the increase in market value from the frozen assessment years. And as I mentioned, there was some properties that you were surprised at how underassessed they were. The reassessment brought in a lot of value to this assessment roll. But at the same time, the county executive felt that she should propose the taxpayer protection plan to avoid significant swings in taxes and maintain the thriving real estate market. The county enacted the law in March of 2020 to implement the plan based on the state authorizing legislation. The TPP is a 5-year exemption that phases in assessment increases due to the reassessment. The exemption base is based upon the difference between the 1920 final assessment, which was the assessment roll prior to the 2021 assessment roll, to the tentative 2020-21 assessments that were published in January of 2019. And the law equalizes the level of assessment between the two rolls for the purposes of the exemption calculation. Equalizing, I don't want to get too into the weeds because I could spend a lot of time on level of assessment and the ratio. But the level of assessment is a relationship between the assessments that are produced and the market value. And because there was two different levels for the 2019-2020 roll and the 2021 roll, the law sought to create an equal playing field between the two assessment rolls. And then you take the difference in the value between the two rolls and you create your exemption calculation. I'll try to show you a little bit later in an example of how this works. The exemption was 80% beginning for the 2021 roll and will be decreasing by 20% increments for the subsequent 4 years, with the total increase becoming fully taxable by the final year. And I think this law really helps in, gradually increasing the market values from where they should be. The increase in value was necessary, but at the same time, you don't want to create massive swings because of the undervaluation and the habitual grieving and mass settlement programs from the previous administration. So what we tried to do here was make sure that we want the assessments to be right, but we don't want to negatively impact people who are just doing what they felt they needed to do to protect their property rights. And I'll explain a little bit more the grievance process, but I think this law really does achieve what the intent of it was. The other note that I should make is that the assessment decreases and physical changes were excluded from this exemption, but as you'll see later, the physical changes were included in another law that was recently proposed by the county executive and passed by the state legislature. So here's the example that I'm displaying, and I'll try to guide everybody here in terms of figuring out what the exemption amount is. So in this example, the market value was $250,000 in the previous assessment roll, the 2019-2020 assessment. Not atypical actually for that assessment roll because of the undervaluation found throughout that roll. So in this example, we have $250,000 in market value. When you, as I explained, equalize it, you get an assessment of $250. Then in 2021, for this example, this property increased by $250,000 to a market value of $500,000. That may seem like a significant increase, but actually, when you look at the difference between the 2019-20 assessment roll and the 2021 assessment roll, it's actually quite on par with where we should be. Because of the undervaluation throughout the roll, many properties saw significant increases in the value. So this is not, as I said, an atypical example. Now, as I stated, the difference between the two is $250. So $500 for the assessment from the 2021 roll and the $250 from the 2019-2020 roll, and you'll get a difference of $250. Now, remember, the exemption is for 5 years, and the initial exemption is 80% of the assessment increase. Therefore, only 20% of the increase is applied for the, I'm sorry, I have a typo here, but the 2020-2021 tax year. So when you take the $250 difference and you multiply that by the 20% increment, you'll get $50 a year. So the assessment, the taxable assessment will increase by $50 per year. negating the significant increase that you'll see because of the added value to the assessment roll. So in this example, we took the $500, subtracted the $250 and had $250 left over, multiplied that by the 20% increments you'll see per year, and you have $50,000 in market value. So you take your base value from the 2019-2020 year, which was $250, and you add in that $50,000 increment. And you do that for the remaining years to see that by year 5, you'll finally be fully taxable. And like I said, you can see that this is a gradual increase from the $250,000 to where the market value of the property should be, which is $500,000. It's still a somewhat complex law, but I think this is a really great example of how to think about it in a very simple way. It's not the final result in certain circumstances because your clients will have other exemptions. So, a lot of people will have a veteran's exemptions, a senior exemption, other exemptions that they qualify for. So you'll have to add in those exemptions once you put in the TPP exemption.
Robert, before you go to your next slide, I just noticed some of our members, I see your hands up in our Q&A. This is webinar, so I can't get you on screen, but if you can go ahead and type your question in the Q&A box, we will get to those questions at the end of Robert's presentation. Sorry, thank you.
No, I'm sure there's a lot of questions. It is an interesting law, but I hope this is helping in trying to show that try to simplify the math for yourself. Take it one step at a time, and you'll slowly figure out what the exemption is. And remember, you can't exclude, when you look at the final taxable value, your other personal exemptions that people qualify for, such as your seniors exemptions and your veterans exemptions. Now, this is the new law that I was referencing. I'm pretty excited about this law. We were developing it during, we're still in the pandemic, but in the height of the pandemic, developing this law, and I think it's very important. It really is quite a great incentive for our homeowners who are moving into our suburbs and want to benefit from our great community, our great schools, our great services. So I think this is really enticing for people who either want to come in and be a part of our community, or are already here and just want to improve their homes and have a great family life here. So in 2021, the state enacted amendments to the 421F law of the real property tax law as requested by County Executive Laura Curran. The amendments will protect taxpayers against drastic property tax increases from qualifying new construction and home improvements, and will help the local economy recover from COVID-19 pandemic by stimulating the local construction industry. The amendments provided Nassau homeowners with an 8-year exemption for new construction improvements that first appear on the county's 21-22, 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25 assessment rolls. So all those consecutive assessment rolls. There is a note that I have in this presentation that for all those individuals who perform new constructions or improvements for the 2021 year, which is calendar year 2018, they will begin receiving the exemption for the 21-22 roll. So although the construction that you performed should have been applied, or you would hope it would apply for the 2021 year, it actually starts your calendar now. So that will increase, I guess, the field of people who qualify and deserve to receive this exemption. The first year of the exemption provides qualifying homeowners with a 100% exemption for new construction or improvements. And the exemption will then decrease by 12.5% per year until it expires. And I think it's just a fantastic deal for people who are interested in moving into the county and who are interested in improving the home. I mean, we've seen a lot of people moving in from New York City to our suburbs, Nassau County, Suffolk, and the Hudson Valley, and they're truly interested in, joining our community, improving their homes, and having their young families be a part of Nassau County. And I think this exemption really furthers their goal of being here and achieving what they're hoping to achieve. And this law took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get passed in the legislature. And I have to commend Laura Curran's team, because they really pushed for this, and they just saw the merit in incentivizing homeowners to either come into the county or improve the county and enjoy life with their families. And it's like I said, it's just a fantastic idea. The amendments will increase the limit on qualifying physical increases in Nassau from $80,000 to $750,000. So the cap increases dramatically. An $80,000 improvement many years ago when this law was put together maybe was a great improvement, but now people are building their homes and the cost of construction is significantly higher, and the cost of creating a family home is significantly higher. So the county executive and her team, and they consulted with the Department of Assessment and the county attorney's office, and they said, what number makes sense for here, considering everything that's going on with the pandemic. And this is the number they landed on. And I like I said, I think that's a fair number for everything that's happening currently in the industry. It's a very hot market. And as I said, the construction values are much higher than I think anticipated once this pandemic hit. The Department of Assessment will not require homeowners to file applications, as the department will be relying upon copies of building permits received from the towns and the villages. Another great provision of the law. A lot of our personal exemptions require the applicants to file paper with the department. And I think this makes it a lot easier for the homeowners to receive the exemption without putting in too much effort. And we did the same thing when we implemented the taxpayer protection plan. You remove any instances of homeowner error, especially when they qualify for the exemption. So I think that was a major tool to give the exemption to people who qualify. And I think one other note or suggestion really that I have is that any homeowner who plans on doing new construction should go by the book and try to do things where permits are submitted. It's to their benefit actually to have permitted work, so that the county Department of Assessment can see these permits and apply the exemption. If we don't see permits, then it'll be hard to have these people qualify for the exemption. So I would avoid work where the construction is unpermitted, because actually the homeowners are losing out on a really great exemption. So that is my suggestion to homeowners in the county. And if you have clients who plan on doing work in the county, is to do everything by the book, because they're really losing out on an exemption that is an 8-year exemption. And that for the first year, 100% of the value of the construction is not on the assessment roll. So like I said, I highly recommend that you tell your clients, if they're going to do work, and it's qualified work under the law, to please have it be permitted, or else they lose out on something that it will help them in the long run. I'm going to briefly touch on the grievance process. I represent the Nassau County Department of Assessment, which sets the values. And there's a separate commission, an independent commission that will review the values, and they make a determination as to whether our assessments are accurate or need to be adjusted. So I'm going to go into the process a little bit. Like I said, I'm not the commission, and I don't make rulings, or my department doesn't make rulings on an independent review of the property grievances. But it is important to know, and we'll just touch on it briefly. So, like I said, although the overall accuracy of the county has been confirmed by independent studies, and we've exceeded national and state standards, I think it's important to, state that homeowners have a bundle of property rights, and this is part of their bundle of property rights. And they have the right to file a grievance if they believe their property's value is incorrect. And as large as the county is, there will be instances where the number isn't exactly on point. So they have the right to file a grievance if they find that the county's close, but maybe not close enough. And like I said, the county's Assessment Review Commission, which is the independent body, is charged with reviewing applications for corrections, and have made the filing of a grievance a very, very simple process for taxpayers. As we all know, assessment is not simple, and filing a grievance and taking advantage of your legal rights is seen as probably equally not as simple. But the way that the Assessment Review Commission has put together their website and the grieving process, it's impressive, and I think it should be commended. So there is a new assessment for each year. The deadline to appeal a new assessment is set by law, which for the next tentative roll will be January 3rd, 2022 and March 1st, 2022. So the previous year is already done in terms of the filing period, but you can always catch up and try to appeal your assessment the following tax year. And if you disagree with the most recent your most recent assessment, you must appeal it to be considered for an adjustment, even if you are still waiting for a determination for a grievance you filed the previous year. So many homeowners in this county file every year. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't file if you feel that your new assessment is inaccurate. If you wait for a determination and you don't file, like I said, each year is a separate year. So do not think that waiting for a determination affects the new tax year. Every year is a separate year, and don't forget that. And the application requires only basic information about your property, and you can file it online. And the vast majority of homeowners will file online. And it's very clean, simple process. And the system that's in place actually helps the homeowner choose the comparable sales that they will use to file their grievance. Now, ARC may reduce your assessment if appropriate. It has no authority to increase your assessments. So if you file for a property that's worth $500,000 and it's truly worth 520, ARC will not increase the assessment. By state law, it does not have the authority to do that. You should decide whether to appeal the new assessment by comparing the Department of Assessment's adjusted market value with your own estimate of your property's current market value. And or if you believe the assessor's level of assessment, which we touched on very briefly before, does not reflect the average ratio of assessments to market value in your tax class. And that's that relationship I tried to explain earlier. It's still somewhat tough to explain in this format, but I think I think I explained it in a simple way. ARC may also correct your tax class and hear your appeal if you are denied an exemption if warranted. I think a lot of people actually lose out on that grievance process. They don't actually know that if the tax class is wrong, you can also appeal your tax class. So that's just something to remember. There's it's a major it's it's very important to get your tax class right because it will affect your tax rates. There is no fee to file with ARC. And for additional information regarding the grievance process, you can use the link below. Um, I'll leave it up for a little bit before I move on to the next slide. But that page is extremely informative and will help homeowners who want to file their grievance. There's also additional information on there, and I would take advantage of it if you were planning on filing a grievance. The Nassau County Department of Assessment also has a web page. I'm going to bring it up probably at the end of this presentation. And that's a really important page to use just for additional information for yourselves. And I'm sure most of you know the land records viewer page. That is an extremely helpful tool. It shows you the values for this upcoming tax roll and the previous history for the tax rolls. It has tax information, exemption information. It has tax maps, extremely useful tools. The Department of Assessment, since I've been here, has become extremely transparent, or to the best of our abilities. Probably one of the most transparent in the state. And there's a reason for that. The county executive is interested in trying to help people understand what their values are. And there's a lot on the line with assessment. You pay for, schools, your services. So it's important to try to get everybody to understand what they're looking at when their tax bill comes in. So I'm going to go to the next slide. I think that's probably enough time for everyone to get that information. And these were the tools that I was talking about. I do want to note the county is not responsible for municipal budgets. Your municipalities, your taxing jurisdictions that you're a part of, or your homeowners or your clients are part of, they are in charge of the municipal budgets. So your school budgets are run by the school district. They make the determination. Your water districts, your lighting districts, the county does not control that. That is under the authority of those districts. And I try to tell the constituents who call all the time and say, well, why did you set my taxes this way? Why are my school taxes XYZ? Take advantage of your rights as a voter. If you agree or disagree with your school budgets, you have to go and exercise your right to vote. And I think the vast majority of the time, people actually approve of the school budgets. The schools in the county, they're fantastic. And the students, go on to do great things because of these schools. So, 9 times out of 10, the school districts have their budgets approved. But if you disagree and you have the right to disagree, don't come to the county. Go and vote. That includes the towns, villages, everything. The only place where the county has control is the county budget. And that's not even the Department of Assessment. Like I said, we don't do that. We value properties. So the Department of Assessment values and classifies properties to determine your share of the pie, processes personal and commercial exemptions, and defends its assessments at small claims assessment review hearings. This is the page that I was talking about that I'm sure, if not all of you, most of you know, is the land record viewer page. It's extraordinarily helpful. And you can review the department's values, granted exemptions, notices that we send, the taxes, the grievance history. There's a little link on the bottom of the valuation page. You can click the grievance history, parcel maps. I would be remiss to say if I didn't tell you about the comparables page. There's a comparables page where you can see comparable values in the school district and neighborhood. You can see sales that happened for that reassessment role. So extremely helpful tool. The Department of Assessment also provides its information, like I said, on the home page, such as exemption applications and brochures. We have our assessment methodologies on there, and important updates and information. So we try to disseminate as much information as we can to help you and the homeowners understand what is going on in real time. And I think the department's doing a great job, and we'll continue to work on it and continue to give everybody the information that they seek. It is a tough subject, but I think we're really getting there. We're making progress in terms of letting everyone know how this system works. And if you need to schedule an inspection or you have general valuation questions, please feel free to email your questions to the below email. And I'm just going to leave this page up for a little bit for everyone to jot down the links. Our field staff is great. Send your request by email. They respond very quickly. They want to inspect the properties. They want to make sure that the inventory is right, that the square footage is right. So make sure if your homeowner wants to have the property inspected, to email this address. They're a very, very important group, making sure that our values are accurate because the data revolving around the home is accurate. So please take advantage of the pages that I've put up here. And Marlo, I think that's it. I probably cruised through this a little faster than I expected, but I guess that leaves some more time for question and answers.
Yeah, I was just going to say, not a problem, because we have a bunch of questions. So a common question that I'm seeing here that a lot of people have asked is, can we share your presentation? I know that you had a lot of formulary stuff in there and a lot of points of contact. So would you be okay with me and LIBOR sharing this presentation with our members, especially the ones who took the time to join us today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
Perfect. So folks, we'll get that out to you. So first question is here, why can't new construction properties be assessed correctly right from the beginning instead of something about costs of the being astronomical? So why can't new construction properties be assessed correctly right from the beginning?
That's a great question. I think the issue is because they were excluded from the TPP, many new construction properties, were negatively impacted from the reassessment and from not receiving the TPP exemption. So this new HIX law actually broadens the field and allows the new construction to also receive an exemption that I feel is necessary. On top of that, as I mentioned before, it's a great incentive. The pandemic did affect our economy. It did affect our homeowners, and to incentivize them to improve their home and to improve the community, I think is a good idea, and it's a good policy idea.
We have another question here. If you got a reduction in assessment for 2020, 2021, how does that factor in with this 5-year plan?
So actually, the reduction does not get phased in. The county executive and the Department of Assessment and the county attorney felt that the homeowner should receive the reduction immediately, that the reduction should not be phased in. So if you received a reduction in 2021, you'll get the full benefit of it from day one.
Okay. Okay. For similar homes with similar property size, if one neighbor habitually grieved their taxes and another neighbor did not, will that always be a disparity in their taxes, or will they even out?
Fantastic question. And that's what kind of brought us into the realm of reassessing all the properties in Nassau County. It is not a given that when you grieve, you win. Obviously, the commission has to view your grievance in light of the market and in light of, your value. So it is not a given, but in the um, previous years, it did have quite a negative impact. So the habitual griever, more often than not, because of the frozen assessment roll from the previous years, uh, the habitual griever was receiving reductions while the non-habitual griever or the non-griever did not. And that created the disparity. And that's a great point that question presented is um, it really did have a great impact on our taxpayers and caused great disparities. And I think the solution to the problem is continually to update and value the properties and make sure the values are accurate. You don't want to stop, you're not going to stop people from exercising their legal rights to grieve. But that doesn't mean that we can't keep on trying to make sure that the values are accurate. And like I said, just because you grieve doesn't mean you win.
Right.
When the roll was frozen, yeah, that was the case more often than not. But now that the values are more in line with there should be, um, you're not going to win everything. And if you do, we're going to continue to try to make sure your value and your neighbor's values are accurate so that everyone's paying their fair share.
Okay. We have a question here. Maybe you can just review this. Who qualifies for the TPP?
So everyone who had an increase in their market value from the previous roll, the 2019-20 roll, to the 2021 roll. The only people who were excluded was the physical, but now they're getting picked up by the new home improvement law.
Okay. Please clarify, is the 8-year exemption for new construction or improvements only available for the next 4 years up to 2025?
Yes, yes, it is. The law sunsets. I'm not sure if it's going to be re-upped. That'll be hard to predict depending upon the circumstances. This was really geared towards the COVID-19 pandemic. Um, you know, the policymakers can make a decision that this is a great law and we should keep pushing it forward. But until that time, I would stick with what we see here. And the plain language says 24, 25. But you never know. The policymakers can say it's a great law and let's keep it going. But right now, the way the law is written, keep it simple. Right now, 24, 25 is the last year. But if you get in 24, 25 and that's the last year, remember you get 8 years of the exemption from that year. So it doesn't mean that when you receive the exemption, let's say Marlo receives the exemption in 22, 23, doesn't mean that she stops receiving the exemption in 24, 25. She keeps receiving it. It just means the last time that the homeowner's physical value will be, I guess, reviewed and utilized for the exemption.
Okay. We have here, for a property where the house is torn down and a new house is built on the property, the new assessment is phased in over a period of 8 years. Can you grieve the assessment in the first year?
Yes, yes, and yes. The new construction does not qualify for TPP, but it will get the highest. But it doesn't mean necessarily that our physical value is right on point. If your homeowner feels that we overvalue the physical value, absolutely, they have the right to challenge that.
Okay.
But it will affect the HIEX exemption. It will, because if you lower the physical value, obviously there's less physical value that qualifies.
Okay. How does the exemption work for new construction, i.e. the land is worth $300,000, the new home sells for $900,000? Is all of the improvement exempt? Sorry.
So in that instance, yes, the improvement receives the exemption. The land value is not included as being part of the exemption. So if the home is worth $600,000, I'm just doing the math because 900,000 minus $300,000 for the land. Yes, the 600 is under the cap value of 750. They'll receive the 100% exemption for the improvement value for the first year, and that will phase out over 8 years.
Okay.
But the $300,000 will be fully taxable and will be taxed based upon the tax rates, that are set due to the budgets and levies that we receive from the municipalities.
Okay. This one's a little bit of a long one, so bear with me.
Okay.
As far as the new law, RPTL section 421-F, can we find out what types of improvements, or are there limitations on the type of improvements, qualify for the 8-year exemption? And is there a minimal value of the home improvements, i.e. would a $5,000 bath renovation qualify for the 8-year exemption? Thank you.
Great question. There is no minimum. The exemption is geared towards not simple renovations, but for physical value that's added to the house. For example, square footage additions. So if you're, renovating a kitchen, not going to get it. But if you're doing a gut reno, more likely than not, that is a significant physical exemption and the homeowner will receive it. But that is a good question. There is no minimum. If you add 5 square feet to the home, you will receive the exemption. So I just think, we make it clear here, adding new floors does not count. You have to really make significant physical changes to the property.
Okay.
And one addition, yard improvements such as pools or gazebos or detached sheds does not qualify. The intent of the law is to improve the main building of the home.
Got it. We have a question here. Can you elaborate on the tax class? What does that mean?
So Nassau County is a 4-class system. Class 1 is residential. So 1, 2, or 3 family homes and anything that's 3 stories or less. So you can have condo buildings that are 3 stories or less that are considered residential properties. Then 2, 3, and 4 are considered commercials. You have for class 2, everything that's above 3 stories. So condos and co-ops that are, taller than the 3-story units that I was just discussing. Class 3 are utilities, and class 4 are commercial buildings. So it's important to get the tax class right because you want to pay the taxes that are based on the class that you're in. There's something called, and I don't want to go too deep into the weeds again, but adjusted base proportions. And that actually determines the share by class that, the levies are being split amongst. So you have your share of the pie internally within the tax class, and then each tax class has their own share of that pie.
Got it. Okay. For reporting purposes on the multiple listing service, agents are directed to report the current real estate tax without exemptions. There's much disagreement over whether agents must include the 5-year TTP in the calculation of tax without exemption. In fact, the 5-year TTP does not reflect the current taxes. Would you be able to clear up the confusions?
I think I need a little bit more clarity on the question, but TPP is an exemption, but it is a countywide exemption, and few individuals are not receiving it. I try to view it as a phase-in. So for people who sees that their values being adjusted, which is, like I said, the large majority of the county, their property increases or decreases are phasing in. So I probably need a little bit more clarity as to the way the question was worded. It was tough to answer, but it is considered an exemption, but I would view it as a phase in of value over time.
Okay, and that's an anonymous question asker. So anonymous person who asked the question, feel free to utilize the email address that Robert has left here to elaborate on the question and to open up a dialogue with the county. The next question we have here, will there be a huge swing on the tax bill on the 8th year if new construction improvements are exempt for 8 years?
No, because of the 12 and a half decreasing exemption over the 8 years. 12.5% generally is not going to swing your taxes too far to the left or right. And only a small portion of the county is going to qualify for this exemption. Out of 380,000 residential parcels, I can't imagine that, compared to that number. I'm sure it's a lot in total, but comparatively, no, I don't think it's going to shift the taxes around by the final year. And remember, 12.5% over 8 years. That's one of the longer exemptions I've seen. And that increment is also one of the lower ones I've seen. So just due to the number of people who qualify versus the number of other parcels in the county, and due to the increments, I have a hard time seeing it swinging the taxes too far to the left or right.
Okay. And I'm going to take just 2 more questions here. How long does it typically take for the VMF to catch up with recent sale prices? Example, if something is assessed at 750,000 but sells for 925 in this hot market, when can the taxpayer expect to see an increase?
This is another great question. We can't selectively reassess properties based on their sales price. It's actually against the law. It is used for the reassessment purposes, but we can't do what we call welcome neighbor, where if your property sells for $900,000, we value it at $900,000. When based on assessment theory, actually, you have to take in the aggregate of sales, based on what you're reviewing, maybe neighborhood, school district. Maybe in smaller counties, you consider all the sales in the county for the property. If the county or the jurisdiction is homogeneous, maybe you have a wider spread of sales. Here, you want to focus on neighborhood and school districts because of how heterogeneous the county is. So it would be the aggregate of the sales in that neighborhood or in that school district that really governs the value. And as everyone here on this, I was going to say call, but on this conference understands, is that each taxpayer, each homeowner, each buyer, each seller has their own reasons for buying or selling at that time, at that moment, for at that price. Marlo and I could be buying and selling a property. She wants to buy my property, and she might be, highly motivated to buy the property now to get her family in, maybe go take the kids and bring them to the school district. So she might be willing to go over the asking price, to get in, wherein maybe I have a different motivation. I said, well, I don't really need to go anywhere now. I can take my time. I have no plans. I'm going to retire on the beach and hang out. So, I may bring the price lower. So you shouldn't be taking into consideration one sale at a time because of the different motivations of each homeowner or buyer seller. Doesn't mean it's not arm's length. It means that you should just consider the overall trend of the market versus the single sale.
I lied. I actually have 2 more questions, but
that's fine.
This one, limited inventory and low interest rates have increased home prices to unprecedented levels.
True.
The current state of the real estate market and soaring home prices, what, if any, adjustments will be made when the market adjusts back to normal levels?
We'll adjust it back down. We are trying to adjust everything year by year. So if the market continues to be hot, then you have to value the properties appropriately. But if the values come down, because we view everything a year by year basis, we'll immediately bring the values down based on a declining market.
And my last questions, and really in the beginning of the presentations, I said I would enter your contact information, but I can't in the Q&A. So if you could give us a point of contact, email, phone number, the question here is to give to buyers to clarify what is considered a significant improvement. So, a phone number or contact information that our members can refer to their clients to reach out to at the county.
Yeah, excellent point. I think the email at the bottom of the screen, because they do the inspections, because they assess, the residential parcels, and they're out there every day. Those people right there, that division, the Nassau County Field Division, that email is going to be very valuable to your homeowners. And then if you need to call, I'll give you the number now. It's 516-571-3432 if you have any questions. But I highly recommend that email address. They're pretty quick to answer, and you go straight to the source.
Got it. And Robert, there's a bunch of questions in the Q&A box that we're not going to be able to get to because of time. But if people want to reach out to your office, would they be able to contact you, and how would they be able to do so?
Yeah, sure. You can contact NC Assessor. It's NC for Nassau County, the word assessor, and then at NassauCountyNY.gov.
And we'll include that contact information when we send out the slides to our attendees today.
Great.
And Robert, is there anything else you want to finish up with, or anything else you want to share with our members that you think would be important for them to know to share with their clients?
No, I just appreciate everyone bearing with me. It is a difficult topic. I tried to explain it the best way I could. And, I think the county executive, Nassau County, my department, we're all really geared towards trying to get everybody to understand what we're doing here. I don't want it to feel like it's a black box. I want everybody to feel like they can contact us, or they can look at our website, or we can do things like this that Marlo set up to try to get people to understand and be on the same page. So I appreciate everybody that's on here. Marlo, I appreciate you bringing the Department of Assessment here, because we're doing everything that we can to make sure that the assessments are accurate and that everybody in the county understands what we're doing.
Great. And, we government LIBOR, but government affairs, specifically the department that I'm in, we appreciate the transparency and the open conversation about some of these questions that have come through the LIBOR lines on the phone, people wondering what's going on, what's happening. And so thank you for being available to talk to us today. Ethan, in the background, if you could screen grab the rest of the questions, we'll try to get answers to those offline. Everybody, I hope you have a beautiful day. Enjoy this beautiful weather and have a great 4th of July weekend. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Have a great day.